The next part of this meeting is to talk about Boston Post Road East, as you may know it as Mariner's Way. And if you've got a little deja vu, you're not incorrect that the town has done a study for Mariner's Way before. And we're going to talk a little bit about how this initiative is a little bit different than what's been done before. And we'll talk about some of the things that we've learned so far and where this initiative is going. My name is Dan Stevens. I'm with Camoin Associates. We are an economic development firm. That is all we do. We are specialized in economic development in the Northeast, New England, and beyond. I'm joined by my colleague here, Daryl Booker, and we're looking forward to sharing some information about this initiative this evening. I think we've just covered welcome and introductions. We're going to talk a little bit about what this project is all about, what we've learned before, and some of the next steps moving forward. We are going to do something a little bit, hopefully fun this evening and a little bit more interactive. So if you do have a smartphone and you want to pull it out, we've got some kind of live polling things that we'll do along the way. If you don't, it's okay. It's not mandatory, and we'll talk about some other ways, other opportunities that you all will have to provide some input for this initiative. So you can get your camera app going on your phone. You can scan that code, or you can go to slido.com and put in that number. So I'll just pause here for a moment, and then when we get to the first question, that's going to pop up again if you don't get it this time around. All right, so let's get into a little bit about what this initiative is all about, and I'm going to let my colleague here, Daryl, share a little bit about that.
Thank you, Dan, and good afternoon, everyone. As Dan mentioned, I am Daryl Booker, project manager with Camoin Associates.
Can you get a little closer to that?
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Can everybody hear me? Good. Sorry about that. So I'm Daryl Booker, a project manager with Camoin Associates, working with the town of Old Saybrook on this initiative. So really what this is just a study of the Mariners Way district, which we're now calling Boston Post Road East. So we're looking at ways to redevelop and revitalize this area to really bring back life into it. So we're looking at ways to, through data analysis, looking at market analysis to see what is going to be a feasible development, what is going to be a marketable development, and what is a development that the community is really going to get behind and support. So even though this is a corridor study of the Mariners Way, we are looking at the entire town of Old Saybrook to see what is going to be beneficial to the community as a whole. So with our study areas, we are going to pull data from not only the town of Old Saybrook, but we are looking at the regional footprint that includes the Lower Connecticut River Valley Plain region. So it's really going to be a comprehensive plan that not only looks at that one strip of road, but really look at the whole region, see how we can really bring the whole town back to life. So the study area that we're focused on, of course, the Mariners Way. So it's kind of flanked by I-95 and the railroad to the south. It kind of bookends with Route 154 and kind of extends a little bit past Ferry Road. So one of the things that we are looking to do with this analysis, we really want to kind of look at the real estate market analysis that we've kind of done to see what would be a feasible development to either build new construction here or either take existing structures and kind of redevelop that kind of infill development. We also want to take a look at or dive into the stakeholder engagement piece. We've done a couple of focus groups and some individual interviews so we can really get a good understanding of what the community wants and what the community wants to support in this area. So this is a kind of a drilled down area of what we're looking at. All right, so now that you kind of know the area we're looking at, so the first question, I see we already got some answers, but when was the last time that you visited this area, and why did you visit the area? So it looks like live, work, play, check out dispensary, boat repair, hope for a better future. Well, this kind of poll will kind of stay up, but, feel free to still input your input. So with this is part of our engagement where we want to get your input. So this is really going to help us kind of develop strategies and really get a feel for what is going to be the best developments to kind of bring this area back to life. So yeah, please continue to kind of fill in those inputs. So really, what is this initiative? As Dan mentioned, you had one done in 2014, but really what we want to do with this initiative is really look at what is going to be a realistic and supportable development in the area. So how we do that is by looking at developments that are going to be not only feasible, but also marketable to the community, but also, once again, has that community support. So it's really a three-prong area that we're looking at. Financially feasible, has the market to support the development, and then also has the community support. So we're looking at all three of those to kind of develop the perfect strategy for this area. And then once we kind of identify the potential developments, what are going to be some of those challenges and obstacles that development or proposed development may face? And that's when we have the action plan to kind of help address those issues and how we overcome those obstacles and challenges to make sure that the development is successful and is longstanding in the community. And then once again, the strategic actions, the implementation is going to be the most important thing with this. We can come up with strategies all day long, but without actual items that kind of guide the town how to implement these strategies and how to support the developments to make sure that they are adding a value to the community. So without implementation, no plan is going to be successful. And then what did the 2014 plan do? So that one was really based off of vision and aspirations. And I think every plan does need vision and aspirations to kind of, get the community to buy into it. But what we want to do with our initiative is kind of make sure we're more kind of drilled in on the data analysis. So we want to take a comprehensive look at not only the economic data for the community, but also the market opportunities that are present right here. And then based on the current economic landscape, the last one was done in 2014. A lot has changed since 2014, so we want to make sure that what we're proposing is still in line with what the current economic state will support. And then once again, implementation. We want to make sure that we are focused on actionable and realistic developments that can actually happen in the town of Old Saybrook. And this really is, we just don't want this to be a plan. We want to lay out actionable steps that can kind of guide the town from day one all the way to year 10 on how to kind of create this plan. And so kind of where we are right now, this plan is scheduled to be wrapped up in February 2024, but we actually kicked it off in August with the team of Old Saybrook, project team in Old Saybrook. So the first phase is really dealing with research and analysis. So we took a deep dive into not only the economic data, but also we are doing some stakeholder engagement. So we conducted some focus groups, we conducted some individual interviews, and now we want to kind of get the public's input through some public surveys that will be releasing after this meeting. So that'd be another chance for you to kind of get your input heard and kind of answer any questions that you may have about this initiative. So once we kind of got all the data pulled together and we kind of combined that with the stakeholder engagement input that we have received, we'll move into the strategy portion of the plan, which kind of looks at not only our current plan, but we want to look at the past plan from 2014 to make sure that, we pull out the good parts of that so we can kind of use that as our foundation to build our plan. So we'll look at the 2014 plan, see what was good from that one, and then kind of combine that with our current research to really put together an actionable plan for the town. And then once those strategies have been developed, we'll release the final report. And then the last one is action, which is the implementation phase of the project. And then with that, I'll kind of turn it back over to Dan to kind of discuss what we kind of learned so far with our data.
All right, great. Thank you, Daryl. One of the first steps in trying to understand what the opportunities are for Mariner's Way is to really understand what the assets and advantages are. What are the unique things about this area that we can build on? What are its competitive advantages, as we would say, relative to other places? Things that might create opportunities and be attractive to developers or new businesses. And you see the first three things on here really related to location. If you're looking to site your business somewhere, or if you're a developer looking to do a project, there are a lot of attractive things about this corridor in terms of its location, not only regionally but locally, proximity to downtown, proximity to the train station, close to marinas, right off of I-95. There are a lot of locational advantages here that present opportunities for a number of different types of uses. Existing businesses, lower land costs, lower rents, underutilized sites that might pose opportunities for redevelopment as well. Challenges and issues related to revitalization, economic development along the corridor. And really, this is kind of a brief overview. There are a number, as I'm sure you are all familiar with. Things like wetland restrictions. Even though we're not right on the coast, there are inland wetlands, and a lot of potentially developable areas have these kind of restrictions that affect what kind of development can happen. Certain uses not allowed by zoning. And you see lack of walkability, heavy traffic and safety concerns. Right, this is not a corridor that anybody wants to walk or bike down. And that poses challenges for certain types of uses and revitalization. It's not an easy walk to the train station or to downtown despite the proximity. Things around sewer and infrastructure availability, capacity. There is no wastewater infrastructure, and that's a significant challenge when you're talking about new development. There are certain things that constrains. It adds costs for certain types of things. So again, it's one of the factors that we have to consider when we explore and identify potential uses within the district here. Within sites and buildings, brownfield sites that are contaminated, may be contaminated, may need to be cleaned up before they can be redeveloped and brought back into productive use or used for different uses than they are now. Lack of public ownership. This is a corridor that is private property, and nobody's going to force private property owners to do anything as part of this initiative, and this is all about working with willing landowners and property owners, and that comes with certain challenges. There are no publicly owned sites, town-owned sites that can be used to catalyze development. And along those lines, no easily developable sites. There's not a great flat field sitting out there in the corridor. We're talking primarily about redevelopment potential and opportunities. And character and perception. Lack of a strong quality of place. What is the identity of this corridor? It's a jumble of mixes at the moment, and there are under-maintained properties throughout, and it presents challenges when you think about character and perception, particularly if you're talking about attracting outside investment and new business interest. So we're going to do another poll question here. And that is, are there any specific improvements or changes that you would like to see in the district? We're going to ask you a little bit later on about types of uses, but what are the things that you drive down that road and you think, if only somebody would do this about that? What are some of those things that you would like to see different as part of that corridor? We'll leave this up for a minute here. Go ahead.
On none of this did I see any mention of the United States Department of Transportation. And I-95 is part of the Eisenhower Interstate Transportation System. And on those roads, all the I's, you have to leave a certain amount of footage on either side of the highway with no buildings higher than 1 story, because the interstate highway system was designed and built in the 50s so that military aircraft can land on them, which is why you have great stretches of level roadway with no curbs. And this was done, it's called Eisenhower because it was done during his administration when he was president. And I see nothing there that says that you've even contacted the United States Department of Transportation.
Yeah, thank you for your comment. Yes, there are a lot of challenges and constraints. Not necessarily everything's up here, but certainly that's part of identifying what those opportunities are. Those kind of restrictions on development are all part of the initiative. So I see some responses up here, sidewalks and bike lanes, a lot about walkability. I see housing, town recreational facilities, aesthetic improvements. We'll just wait a couple more seconds if you want to add any final things here. All right. Theater. That's great. I didn't realize it had emojis. That's great. So what we would really like to share with you tonight are some of the things that we've learned as part of the market analysis. And as Daryl mentioned, this is really identifying what those feasible uses are. What can the market support here? So what is realistic for developers, investors, new businesses in terms of what can be supported? And when we talk about market analysis, we typically think about these 5 categories here. So private market, again, being, the market analysis being looking at the private market. So, what can attract developer interest, new businesses, and so on. So housing, retail, office, industrial, and lodging. And we'll talk a little bit about what we learned within each of those categories. But this is really important here, getting to that idea of what is feasible, what is the future of Boston Post Road East. It's not just what the market can support, and we'll talk about what could be here, the uses that could work. But that's only one piece of the feasibility equation. And you all here represent this bottom right pillar, the community feasibility. So it's not only what the private sector can bring, but what do you all as a community support? What do your elected officials support? And that's really the filter that all of this gets run through at the end of the day. And you see this also financial feasibility, kind of a close cousin of market feasibility, and that's all about, do things pencil out? So maybe the market can support new development, but it won't pencil out for a developer or a new business. And then, we have to think about things like public-private partnerships and ways to overcome those kind of challenges. But again, a lot of what we have done to date is look at the market feasibility, and we'll share some of those findings on the next couple of slides. But keep in mind that the community feasibility and the input that you're providing tonight and through the survey that we'll be providing, as well as the past Mariners Way plan, are all part of that community feasibility element. So within housing, one of the potential opportunities that we've identified is workforce housing. And by workforce housing, what we mean is, essentially below market rates. So housing that's actually affordable to the people that work here in the community. And you see today, 85% of people working in the town are living elsewhere, are living outside of town. And that's a relatively high number than we see in a lot of communities. And a lot of that is due to housing costs, housing prices. And you see, for the people that do live here in the community, a lot of folks are burdened by housing expenses due to housing prices. Over 1,700 households spending more than we would like households to be spending on their housing costs. And so that's typically 30% of income as kind of that threshold. And so 1,700 households are spending more than that 30% of their income on housing expenses. And related to affordability, $164,000 is the household income that you would need to afford a typical median-priced home, which is approaching $600,000 here in the community. So, from a market perspective, a housing need perspective, there's certainly an opportunity for workforce housing.
Excuse me. With Old Saybrook having the number of retail, medical businesses compared to the bedroom communities around Old Saybrook by almost 20-minute drive, is 85% really abnormal when there really isn't the places for them to work in their bedroom communities between here and London, Middletown, New Haven?
It's relatively high even for similar kind of communities that are facing that kind of commuting patterns, job patterns. 85% starts to be pretty high. One of the other opportunities that has come out of the market analysis is the need and market opportunity for senior housing. 55 is the median age here in the community, and that median age is only creeping up. And so, there is projected to be an increase in the number of seniors age 65 plus over the next 5 years. And as the population here continues to age, it drives need and demand for different housing options. And this doesn't necessarily mean nursing homes. There's a wide variety of things that we are talking about when we say senior housing. That can be market rate apartments, it can be townhouses, it can be options for downsizing, and not necessarily things like nursing care and assisted care facilities. There's also market demand, market potential for rental housing. So we're talking about things like apartments, and there is a relatively low vacancy rate for apartments here in the community. 2% is what we would consider a pretty strong rental market. Below kind of 5% typically indicates a pretty strong market. Rents are relatively high, and the population that can afford these kind of market rate apartments is continuing to grow. And so if you're a developer, this presents an opportunity in the form of market rate apartments. And again, what we're doing as part of the market analysis is identifying the could. These are the things that could happen with where the market is today and what has market support. And so at the end of this, we are going to ask you the types of uses that you would like to see here. So shifting gears a little bit, talking about retail, one of the potential opportunities that's emerged through our research and analysis is around mixed-use retail as well as restaurants. Some of the numbers that we've pulled out of our analysis here, over 100,000 for the local median household income. It's a relatively affluent community. Retailers see that, and it's something that's attractive in terms of retail business development. Strong growth overall in the restaurant industry sector, and when we look at the data and look at market gaps, and there's some number crunching that we do to look at those kind of gaps, restaurants are an opportunity. So there is still growth potential for restaurants locally, and average vacancy rates generally pretty healthy. So we're seeing things in the data that points to this as a potential market opportunity. Another potential opportunity related to retail would be what we call destination retail. So compared to things like convenience retail, where you're going maybe on a daily or weekly basis, maybe grocery shopping, pharmacy, those kind of things. Destination retail, things that you maybe shop for once a month, once every couple of months, those kind of things. The kind of retail where you might drive 30, 40 minutes. Because it's a major purchase or you're doing comparison shopping or similarly. And there's potential here for destination retail. You see here close to 80,000 people living within what we've defined as that regional retail trade area, so the distance from which people might be expected to drive for those kind of retail offerings. The 20,800 square feet of retail space that the community has, what we would say, absorbed, that's been filled and newly occupied within the past year. And you see 20 to 30 minutes to a lot of destination retail currently. So all of these things kind of add up to this being an opportunity, potential opportunity for Boston Post Road East. Office market, like many places coming out of COVID, is not particularly strong. Very few people, I should say, are developing office space. There's significant office vacancy in a lot of places around the country. But with that being said, some of the things that we've seen in the data and our research and analysis indicates maybe there is some limited, maybe kind of niche office development potential, particularly around medical office space, and some of that has happened recently in the community, as well as professional office space. So that would typically be part of mixed-use development. So if you're doing, a developer's doing a mixed-use project with housing above, professional office could be a part of that development. And what we see a lot of in the office market right now is kind of a transition from lower quality space to higher quality space. So it might not be new businesses coming in, but a lot of places do have that demand for higher quality office space. We've also looked at the industrial market, which is not one of the stronger market opportunities that we've seen. And you see here not a lot of development activity in industrial, not a lot of new absorption, so kind of overall demand, and somewhat relatively high vacancy rates. So it's what we see in the data does not point to a lot of industrial development opportunity for the corridor. But with that being said, similar to the office space, there is likely some kind of very specific types of industrial development. And what we mean by hybrid and industrial here, a good example of that would be something like a microbrewery where it's got the brew pub component and it's also got the on-site manufacturing. Or it's a furniture manufacturer that's got a showroom. So, it's kind of a mix of industrial entertainment, mixed industrial retail, those types of businesses. The last category that we've looked at is lodging. So is there hotel market opportunity or other types of lodging? And you see some of the market metrics here, 66% overall market occupancy rate. That does sound low, I think, if you're not familiar with hotel market dynamics. But when you start to cross that 60% threshold, it does indicate that there's strength in the market, and that starts to attract hotel developers as you get kind of upward 60 to 70% occupancy rates. Development starts to become more feasible. There's been strong growth in hotel rates in the market area, currently at an all-time high, and a lot of short-term rentals in the community, achieving pretty high rental rates. Now, I don't think that a hotel is likely the first thing that's going to happen, and there's probably placemaking and additional development that would need to occur before the corridor is attractive to a hotel developer. But with the proximity to I-95, strong market conditions, this is something that could be a realistic opportunity within the corridor, just maybe not as part of a first phase. So kind of a summary here. We've got some example photos. A lot of these things can look a lot of different ways, so if you hate the design of any of these, please don't run us out of the room. But mixed-use development, apartments and ground floor, commercial space, workforce housing, the senior housing, as well as market rate rental housing. Really, housing across the income price point spectrum, there's just a lot of demand potential out there. Destination retail, medical office uses, we talked about the hybrid industrial type of uses, and lodging hotel uses.
Excuse me, on Block, you're looking at developing that area with all those types of buildings? Is that what you're looking to do?
No, that's not. So I'll back up and clarify. What we've done is a market analysis, and that answers the question of what could the market support on Boston Post Road East. This is not what anybody is proposing happens at Boston Post Road East. That's why you all are here tonight. That's why we want to get your input. That's why we've got a survey for you to take after this. What we are simply doing is trying to present what could be based on market conditions.
All those slides you showed were positive stuff in Old Saybrook. I don't see one negative thing, so I don't understand what changing anything to do. Every slide you showed was positive for Old Saybrook. There wasn't one negative thing there. So why would we want to change?
Well, I mean, that's great. I'm not, others may have that same opinion. Others may have different opinions. So that's kind of where we are tonight is, where does this initiative go from here? Really depends a lot on everybody's input. What are the things that the community, you all want to see happen here?
Does the 10,000 square foot cap that we voted on years ago still hold in that area? Nothing greater than 10,000 square foot building? We all voted on and approved years ago that cap is in place?
So there's a couple different zoning regulations, and maybe I'll let Chris, if you want to answer that.
I can't hear the question.
We voted on a cap on the side of the building that it was 10,000 square foot maximum.
It depends on the zoning district. So
In Mayor's Way.
So I think there's 3 different zoning districts that cover Mariner's Way, but I'll let Chris.
So you're saying a 10,000 square foot building max?
We voted on, I don't recall what zone it was in.
So is anywhere in Mariner's Way able to be developed into any one of those things that you showed us in the current zoning?
There probably needs to be some rezoning. So there's business district, industrial district, marine industrial districts, but the caps and to assemble parcels, you're probably going to have to go through and rezone those. So residential, for example, would not be allowed unless it had an affordable component. Is that?
I think that's it. All right, I think folks have gotten a jump start on our next survey question here. What type of development would you most like to see in the district? See housing and restaurants at the top of the list.
You want to plug in another?
So there will be a survey and that will have an opportunity to write in other types of uses that you would like to see in the district. And so we'll put up the link to that at the end of the meeting here.
Out of
curiosity then, this listing that you have here, where was that stemming from? The previous study that you had?
This,
Categories?
these were chosen from the market analysis.
Of your firm or the folks you're working with here?
By our firm. So this is not the end all be all. This is a take the pulse.
That area, probably not, you can use it in housing with all the noise down there from a roof blast hall to EL, to the asphalt plant, to all the marinas making noise, the enterprise has a business behind there, or a blast hall. It's just, it's loud down there all day long.
Yeah.
It's non-stop concert.
Yeah. Certainly depends on where you are in the corridor. Yep, that's a great point. So we've got 22 responses here, so we'll slide along here and talk a little bit about next steps, where this initiative goes from here. And so I'll let Daryl take it from here and talk a little bit again about that survey.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. So I think probably the biggest point that I want to make with our next steps is the public survey. That is, if you have the agenda, you should have the link and the barcode to that, so it should be live now. And that's really where you can get your input heard. So it's about 5 to 6 questions, and there is some spaces for others that if we didn't list your answer, you can put in the other that you would like to see. So once again, the biggest point is that what we presented here tonight was just what our data is showing that could be a potential here. Now, once we get your input on what you want to be here, we can kind of marry those two together to kind of paint the complete picture of what actually would be the best redevelopment for Old Saybrook. So once we get your input, that's when we really start developing the strategy for the project. And then once we get all of our strategies developed, we'll kind of get back with the town's team to kind of finalize the report, and then hopefully have that finalized and made public first part of 2024. So once again, I will stress that you complete the public survey, because that's where we get your input. So I know there's probably a lot of questions here, but that would be your opportunity to kind of get your voice heard. But thank y'all for your time. If there's any other questions, be glad to maybe take one or two.
What is, if you have the data, all of these properties along Mariners Way are all in private hands, they're all owners. What's the total appraised value of all that property?
I don't think we looked at that.
Couldn't tell you off the top of my head.
Yeah.
You ought to look into that.
Yes, ma'am.
At the beginning of the presentation, you had the different bubbles out there of the steps you're taking. One of it talked about stakeholders. Can you, the interviews you were doing, can you mention what that entailed?
Yeah, we did a couple of focus groups, and then we had. She mentioned the stakeholder engagement. So we did, with the town's help, we identified some people that we wanted to be involved with some focus groups. So we did some property owners and business owners of the Mariners Way district, and then also some potential other interviewers that were either developers or real estate related individuals. Maybe one more question.
With respect to housing development, I recognize that you did an analysis of what would be supported in that area. Did you also consider the feasibility of the fact that there is no wastewater treatment, and can the town and area actually support the increase in population that would be part of a housing development like that? Was that part of market analysis?
Yeah, so that's one of the challenges that we did have on the slide was the developer sites, the lack of the infrastructure there. There's no sewer, I think, in the entire Mariners Way, so that does kind of limit what types of development would be able to go there. So yeah, that is taken into consideration. But there's other questions that you have after tonight. I think there may be on the website when we do the public survey a spot for you to kind of submit questions. So that'd be your opportunity to submit any other questions. But once again, thank you all for your time.